Hello. Long time no see. It's been quite a long time. I'm not sure actually how long. We're probably talking years rather than months. But that's okay. We're all busy. We've all got things going on in life, other priorities, other distractions, other time-sinking activities. What's important is that we're back. For how long, who knows? But we're back for today, at least. And hopefully that is enough. Good enough. I thought today we could do a bit of a July favourites kind of thing. That kind of video used to be like all the rage on YouTube a while back. Maybe over 10 years ago. It was quite a big thing, wasn't it? And I've seen it come back a little bit with some of the creators that I follow. And I thought maybe we could do something like that. I suppose after such a long amount of time, the type of video that people expect, or a lot of people do, is sort of a catch-up kind of thing. But I don't want to dwell too much on the past. I think let's just make something. So I thought we could do a bit of a favourites from July. It's also quite a good prompt for me because I don't tend to think of favourites. I don't tend to take the time to think about what have I been enjoying this month. So to do that, it's quite a nice prompt to think about what I have enjoyed this month. I've got a couple of objects with me. A couple of things that I don't really have objects for. And then maybe some things that are much more intangible than objects or what am I saying? I'm rambling. That's okay. I'm going to take a sip of my coffee. Wake me up. Yeah. So, what should we start with? I think let's start with a cologne. I'm quite into colognes and smells in general. Maybe less so as I get older. I think you can have too much smell. You can have too many conflicting smells and things like that. But I've always enjoyed nice quality smells. Nothing too strong, nothing too clinical or synthetic. Smells that evoke memories, emotions, feelings. The more organic, the better. I've recently had fresh flowers in my flat. I don't really ever have flowers, and I only had flowers because they were gifted to me. And I expected it to smell better. I expected there was like lavender in there and stuff, and I thought, oh, it's going to smell really nice. But actually, flowers start to smell really horrible really quickly. Maybe I just don't know how to look after them. But I replaced the water. I gave them flower food. I cut the stems and all the things that I think you're meant to do. But within like 4 days, I noticed they really started to smell. So I threw them out. Flowers. Well, that brings us on to the cologne that I've been enjoying. This fragrance is called Orchidea Homme. And it's by the house Louis Cardin. It's an eau de parfum. And this bottle is 85 millilitres, or 2.89 fluid ounces. It's quite a nice bottle. It's alright. Seen better, seen worse. You can see I've not used very much of it, which is for a good reason. I'll tell you why I bought this. I bought this because there's another fragrance I really like by Louis Cardin, which is called Sacred. And I really like that fragrance because it smells great. It sort of smells like chocolate, kind of, or it doesn't smell of chocolate, but it sort of reminds you of chocolate in a way. It's quite a warm, kind of subtle, quite sweet, creamy kind of fragrance. I don't really have the best vocabulary when it comes to describing fragrances. But what I really like about that fragrance is that I always got complimented on it. Doesn't matter by who, people love it. And even people who I think are quite bougie and maybe are more select in the types of smells they like. The type of people who I think probably have quite expensive perfumes have commented on it and said they really liked it. And that's obviously a good enough reason to enjoy a fragrance and a cologne. But what I really like about it is it's very cheap. It's about £20 a bottle, probably about this size, which is very, very good value. And I think colognes can be very, very expensive. And I think there is an element of you get what you pay for, but when it comes to designer fragrances and stuff, you're paying for the label, you're paying for the brand, and I don't really buy into that kind of life. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in quality and good value for money. So I'm happy to pay more money for something that is worth it. And colognes, why is one bottle worth £200 and another bottle worth 10? And I really enjoy that fragrance because it's so good value for money, and therefore I don't feel bad about putting it on every day. It's really, really nice in the autumn and the winter. It's quite nice as like a date kind of fragrance, or like a more intimate one-on-one kind of situation, rather than like at the club, let's blitz the place with this sort of the smell of me. Anyway, I've enjoyed that fragrance for a while, for years, and I was looking at buying another bottle of it because I'd run out, because I use it quite a lot, and I thought maybe I'll try a new fragrance. It's good to try a new fragrance every now and then. And I looked at what other fragrances this house had, Louis Cardin, because I enjoy that fragrance, and therefore I thought maybe I'll enjoy another one of their fragrances. Might be similar, might also be good value for money. And I came across this one. I watched some reviews on it, and I thought that sounds like my vibe, so I thought I would try it. Let's try a bit. It's not really the right fragrance for this time of year. It's not very summery, springy. It's more of an autumn winter fragrance. It's very woody, very sort of musky. I don't even know how to describe it. It's I did see some words of how people described it recently, and I thought they were quite good. Yeah, warm and spicy. That's the phrase. It's warm and spicy. It's woody, kind of cinnamony. There is that floral note from the orchid that you definitely can smell. Kind of vanilla-y as well. It's quite a warming scent. It feels, I don't know how to describe it. It's a bit like if you, if you go to like a really nice restaurant or bar or something, and they'll have like smells, and sometimes the toilets like smell amazing. Like far better than a toilet should smell, maybe. It kind of reminds me of that. It reminds me of like kind of a social place. Yeah, that's not a great explanation, but that's kind of what it reminds me of. And I've not used very much of it because it is the wrong time of year. But the weather here in the UK has been wild of late. We've had several really big heat waves, and it's been very, very hot. Really too hot, to be honest. I live in London, and so the heat here can like not be very nice. It's can be a bit muggy, a bit clingy, and it can be really hot in the evenings. Even after the sun has set, the heat sort of lingers around. And I think if you're like in the countryside, or if it's a weekend, if you're at the beach, or you're on holiday, or you're enjoying yourself somewhere, that heat can be quite nice. But in London, when you're getting on with your life and work and public transport and buses and tubes and stuff, it's a bit much. I found it quite annoying. And it's just been very, very hot, and I just don't think my days when it's been hot, what I've been up to haven't been days where I've enjoyed the heat or appreciated it. They've been days where I've been busy and working. So I haven't been there hasn't been much of a need for fragrance like this. But there has been, a bit of rain now as well. We've had quite a few days in July where it's been quite rainy, a bit more sort of cozy vibes. And I've enjoyed wearing that when it's been like that. The weather here has very much been vests and shorts and changing tops several times a day most of the time, and then we've had the odd day where it's been more like wearing a hoodie, having a nice warm fragrance on, raining outside, staying inside kind of vibes, and that's been kind of nice in a way. I say all of this with the awareness that the weather is not nice in many. How do I say this? The weather that we've been having in the UK is not nice for lots of reasons. Even when you have a day that feels nice, there's always a dark side to that. But maybe we won't explore that today, because this is meant to be a relaxing video. So this has been my July Cologne favourite. I think I probably paid £30 for it, and I think that's good value. And I like these kind of fragrances because not many people have them, and I like to be different. Okay, what can we talk about next? I've got a book here. I finished this month. It didn't take me very long to read. I'm quite a slow reader, and I only really get enough time to maybe read for like 10 minutes to half an hour in the morning or in the evening, in terms of reading for enjoyment. And I've read this book this month. I've read some other books. Started a new book after I finished this. I've got like this. It's very short. It's got 3 parts to it. Is it 2 parts? Yeah, there's 3 chapters. And it's only 148 pages long. And it's called Lie With Me. And it is by Philippe Besson, and they are a French writer. And this has been translated by Molly Ringwald. There's a quote here on the front that says, "Stunning and heart-gripping," by the author of Call Me By Your Name, which I would say makes sense. This book feels like it is in the same subgenre as Call Me By Your Name. There are some similar themes. There's a similar sense of time, about youth, and then looking back on youth from when you're older. If you've watched the film Call Me By Your Name, you don't get that so much because it's all set in one period, but in the book it fast forwards. And I believe there is a sequel as well that goes even further into the future, between Elio and Oliver. Anyway, this book feels similar. It's quite beautiful. It's quite sad. Like a lot of queer literature, queer art, the themes in this, there's a strong theme of solitude. There's a strong theme of a grief for a more innocent time as a child. I feel like a lot of queer literature has themes of solitude. Not all queer literature, but a lot of queer literature has historically had themes around solitude, and this definitely plays into that. I should probably say what it's about. It's about these 2 boys. It's written all from the perspective of one person, Philippe. I need to look this up actually, but this is by Philippe Besson, and the main character is called Philippe. And reading it, I did wonder whether it was kind of autobiographical. And the front is dedicated in memory of Thomas and Drew, who is the other character. But I didn't actually ever get around to looking up whether it is autobiographical. I should do that. It's one of those books where it could be deliberately written in a way to make you think that that's what it is, but it itself could be a piece of fiction. So that could be a device, because it's not. It is written like a novel. It's written like a piece of fiction, I'd say. But it's about this character Philippe and Thomas, who are not friends, but they get to know each other in their 80s in a town in France, and they sort of become lovers. But there's sort of this impending sense that they're going in very different directions in their lives. Philippe is very well educated and is a high achiever, and has hopes from his family and from his school that he's going to leave the town and achieve great things in his life. And Thomas has this feeling of having to stay in the town. His family run a farm, and he has this sense of responsibility that he needs to stay in the town and be a farmer. And they have this connection. They sort of get together when they're like 17, but it's all, it's all hidden, and they're not sort of boyfriends. And there's sort of this sense that, Thomas can get with girls as well. It's, it's not, they're not, what's the word? They're not, they're not together. It's sort of that eggy greyness that a lot of hidden queer experiences often are at that age. And it's about that time, and then it goes forward in time. I don't want to spoil the plot too much, but it goes forward in time and to a certain point where the main character Philippe is reminded of Thomas through meeting someone else who reminds him of him. And it's about looking back on that time, and then it goes forward even further to another point where Thomas has died. I don't want to say too much about it because it's don't want to ruin the plot too much, but I suppose saying that he died isn't too much of a giveaway, seeing as it does say at the front, Thomas Andrew, 1966 to 2016. But yeah, it's very beautifully written. I found it quite hard to get into at first. I find that with most books, that there is always a settling in period. I think that's normally around sort of 20 to 50 pages, maybe not 50 pages, 20 pages maybe, of settling into the style of the writing. I find at first, I find it quite jarring reading a new book written in a new style. I find it takes me a while to sink in with how the writer is written and the style, the way they use language, and receiving the images that they're writing in a way that feels very organic and natural, rather than sort of trying to think about what they've said and trying to imagine what they've said. And I think part of that may be because it's a translation. That's often the case, it's a translation, and I think the translation, it's a good job, but sometimes because it's been translated, certain bits are just like, well, that sentence doesn't sound right. But by the end, there's some really, I wish I could remember good examples, but there's some really profound stuff in there about love and desire and regret and about why we do things or don't do things, about family. It's quite beautiful. I sort of feel like we're in a weird age at the moment where it comes to sort of queer art. because I think we're in a place now where, in the West at least, the times we live in, maybe it's not quite true, but there is for a lot of queer people a sense of security. Not all queer people, but we have gay marriage, kids are coming out younger, and so a lot of the themes that we see in the kind of art, queer art that historically has had, may not be as relevant to today. And should queer art, gay art, be focused on that darkness? It sort of plays into itself a little bit. There is a strong argument for work that doesn't explore those themes, that is just bold and positive and sort of like changing the narrative around this stuff. I don't know quite what I'm trying to say, and I suppose I'm trying to be careful and diplomatic because we also live in very tricky times when it comes to queer people in the West. But I think there is a strange place where art sits within that. Because I think some of the themes about the art, gay art, queer art has encompassed maybe don't translate to today, or don't young people, I think, maybe don't see themselves in it as much. I don't know, I think I'm probably talking a load of rubbish there, really. Yeah. I'm not sure what I'm trying to say there. I suppose there's a lot of this kind of stuff that is set in a period that is, last century. And we're not in the same place as we were then. But if some of those themes carry across. Like I went to see the film Queer, which actually was directed by the same guy who directed the Call Me By Your Name film, and it has Daniel Craig in it, and he's very good in it. And that film is based on a book that's quite old and autobiographical. It's a very good film, but again, that film, really focuses on solitude and loneliness, I'd say. But it's very tied into a period. I think a lot of people wish that we don't sort of ruminate on those themes too much when it comes to like queer art, because it's like making it a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like begging it to become true. It's like torturing ourselves. It's like, let's find a positive outlook moving forward. Let's find the light at the end of the tunnel and let's go towards that. Let's change things. So I don't know. I think I'm talking so much rubbish. Anyway, this book, it's good. Hello. Sorry, the camera cut out there. I was talking about this book, and I was just saying that it's good, it's short, it's beautiful, it's quite sad. You could easily read this within one sitting, I reckon. One sitting or two. Took me a bit longer than that. A few more sessions, but that's because I'm a slow reader. So that was Lie With Me by Philippe Besson. A beautiful, shattering novel about desire and shame, about passionate youth and the regrets of age. I could agree with that. Okay. What else should we do? Let's do this. I'm quite into... I've been getting into sort of spirits and liquor. I quite like making cocktails and things, and understanding the sort of the kind of like science around and the artistry around sort of making drinks and combinations of flavours and things like that. And I've very much been enjoying this. You can see it's almost empty. This is Sazerac rye whiskey. If you're in the US, you might know this, Sazerac. You might be a bit perplexed as to why this is a favourite. I don't think this is a particularly sort of high-end rye whiskey. I think you could do much worse. But I suppose why I've been enjoying it is that in the UK, we have lots of different types of whiskey. We're quite fortunate, you know. We have all the different types of Scotch whiskies, from, you know, your single malts to your blends. We have, you know, Irish whiskey as well, which is a different kind of thing. And I think in the US, Scotch, particularly I think for like more affluent, rich people, I think Scotch can be a bit of like a hobby, and a luxury. And it is here as well, but you know, it's quite readily available. But rye whiskey is quite hard to come by. You can get bourbon, and you can get things like Jack Daniels, which is technically not bourbon, is it? It's like what do you call it? It's something mash, isn't it? What is Jack Daniels? It's not technically bourbon, I believe. They define their liquid as Tennessee whiskey. I mean, it's all quite confusing, really. Because, you know, a lot of the time it's a much for a muchness. Okay, so Jack Daniels is 80% corn, 12% rye, and 8% malted barley. But you know, it's not. I don't really like Jack Daniels. It's very, very sweet, and it's not particularly great, really. But you can get bourbon, but you never really see rye in the supermarkets. You could probably get it in liquor stores, but I got this. Someone bought this for me, a rye whiskey. And the reason I wanted a rye whiskey was because a lot of cocktails come from the States, and a lot of the time they ask for rye whiskey, or the original recipes would have used rye, or people talk about why they want to use rye rather than bourbon, and all these kind of things. And so I wanted to try it. And I've got to say, I really like this. I really like it. Sazerac rye. Very nice whiskey. Nice to have on its own. I quite like having mine with an ice cube. I know some people would say that is wrong. To drink it a bit like a single malt. Just on its own. But also it's really nice in a whiskey cocktail. Whether that's an old-fashioned or a whiskey sour or something like that. It's just not as sweet. And as I get older, I appreciate that. Sweetness used to be the best thing ever when you were a kid. But as you get older, sweetness is just like, ugh. Yeah. It's nice. It's quite smooth, I'd say. Anyway, I've only got a little bit left. And it's quite expensive to buy rye whiskey here in the UK because you don't find it that often. So when you do find it, it's been imported and things. So it's quite expensive. It's actually very much the same colour as the Cologne I was talking about. Interesting. What other favourites have I got? My favourite song at the moment, it's called Nice to Each Other by Olivia Dean. Let me see if I can find her for you. Olivia Dean, if you don't know of her, is great. She is a British artist. I'd say she sort of very much falls into the pop world, but she's quite soulful. There's sort of a slightly indie vibe to her. She's got a very nice voice. Her songs are great, and they're very well produced. They're very well written. They're quite nice arrangements. She's got a great album called Messy, which looks like that. I recommend that album. That album came out in 2023. I'm surprised she's not bigger than she is, really. Anyway, she's got this new song called Nice to Each Other, which came out on the 30th of May. So it's actually a couple of months old, but I've been enjoying it all the way through June and all the way through July. It's just a nice tune, it's a vibe. That's what I'd call it. I'd say it's a vibe. Check her out, Olivia Dean. I think she's good, sort of like Sunday music for a Sunday. I sort of feel the same way about Leanne LaHavis. She's like music for a Sunday. There's something like a bit like sleep in your eye, late morning coffee in bed, a bit sleepy, a bit stretchy. Sunlight coming through the window and hitting the air in interesting beams of light. That's how I describe it, in a way. Yeah. And then TV wise, I've recently currently got a Apple TV trial. I'm trying to do this thing where I jump from one streaming platform to another, ideally through trials rather than through paying a membership. Because I think we've got to the point now where there are great shows on all the platforms and must-watches, but you shouldn't really be paying for all of them. So I've left my Netflix days behind me, and now I'm on my Apple TV days. And then eventually I'll jump to Amazon or Now TV and watch what they have. But Apple TV, I've really been enjoying Apple TV. There aren't loads of shows on Apple TV, but the ones they do have that I've watched are pretty good. I joined it to watch Severance, which I did enjoy, though, like with most shows of that genre, the more it went on, the more I sort of went, well, this is just a bit silly now. But Severance is interesting. But there are other shows that I've really enjoyed on there. Shrinking on there, which has Harrison Ford. And what's the main guy in that? What's he called? He's someone who is quite well known, but I don't know him that well. Jason Segel. Yeah, it's got Jessica Williams in it. Brett Goldstein, who's really bad in it. I think he's involved in somehow in the production of it, but he's actually awful. It's like I don't know. In TV they often say that it's all on the edit. It's like someone's gone after him because, goodness me, he's bad in it. Krista Miller, Michael Urie, Lakita Maxwell is the daughter. It's really good. It's about 3 therapists who work at a clinic that Harrison Ford runs, and it's about their clients and them and working through things. And it's a comedy, but it's quite heartfelt. Really enjoyed that. It deals with some quite like big life stuff, but in quite a light, fun way. That's really good. Your Friends and Neighbours, I've watched that. I quite enjoyed that. It felt like an American version of The Gentleman, if you know of that film/TV show. Sort of felt like the parallel of what that might be in America, in a way. Actually, in that show, a lot of the rich folk buy scotch. They talk a lot about scotch. Maybe that's where I've got the idea that Americans are really into scotch. Or rich Americans, at least. I don't know. But that's sort of about a rich, sort of banker market bro guy who in his 40s, 50s, not quite sure how old he is, takes to a life of crime, robbing all of the people in his neighbourhood. It's quite fun. It's not perfect, it's quite fun. I've just been watching what's the golf one called? What is the golf one called? There's a new one. Stick, that's it. Which has Owen Wilson in, who is just such an interesting person. He's sort of amazing and awful at the same time. He's one of those actors who you're like, you're not acting, you just do Owen Wilson and everything, but also like Owen Wilson and everything is like quite fun, so I'm kind of here for it. And that was the kind of show I didn't think I'd like, because I'm not really sporty. And it's not amazingly written in some ways, but I quite enjoyed it. And I think that's going to have a series 2. And I've been watching The Morning Show, which has Jennifer Aniston in, which is really good. I've only watched the first season of that. I think there's another 2. That's quite a meaty show, that's 10 episodes that are an hour long each, which feels like quite a lot these days in a way. But that's quite interesting and explores Me Too and sort of TV culture and things. But yeah, Apple TV, I recommend it. I think a lot of people think there's not many shows on Apple TV. But actually, like, the stuff that's on there is quite good. I know there's a few more shows now that I see adverts for that don't really look like my cup of tea, sort of trashy, sci-fi kind of things. Sci-fi can be great, but it has to be done well, It has to be done well. And so there's those kind of shows I know as well. But so I can't speak for those, but I recommend it. There's enough on there that will last you a couple of months of really good content. So I recommend it. And it's quite easy to get a trial. I think if you buy an Apple product, you get like a 3-month trial. If you already have an iPhone, I think you can get a week trial or a month trial or something like that. And often you find, with certain bank accounts or certain products, or you get trials to these kind of things. So it's worth trying to get a trial for it and checking it out. Yeah, I've been enjoying it. And also I think it's quite reasonably priced. I made that up. I think... Is it? Have I made that up? I can't remember how much it is. Yes, okay. So those are my favourites for this month. I hope everything has worked here quite well. The mic level, the camera, everything. There's been a bit of noise from upstairs, so I hope that's not been too intruding. Let me know in the comments what your favourites are for July. Yeah, and if you have any suggestions for future videos, or any thoughts on the things that we've talked about, if you haven't already fallen asleep, that is. I quite enjoy sort of these rambly, soft-spoken videos to watch and to make. And I definitely have rambled here. I've rambled about some things that I think I've talked a lot of rubbish. But I think sometimes those are the best ASMR videos, when people talk a lot of rubbish. So I'm embracing it. I'll hopefully see you soon. Sooner than later. But until then, stay safe, stay strong, stay light, and sleep well. I'll see you next time.